I went to Erewhon in June of this year, and I never talked about it. I never shared my experience at Erewhon at the time because I actually enjoyed myself. And I didn't post about that, which is kind of what I wanted to talk about in today's video. A lot of videos directed at, shock value and just this collective hatred and I suppose outrage of just how ridiculous it is and how stupid rich people are.
Small coconut yogurt.
Coconut yogurt? Oh. If you're saying it's a lot, $12.
$23.
Okay. Oh.
Tell me why they're selling, this is ice, by the way, for $31.99.
One singular strawberry, $20.
I mean, it's one banana, Michael. What could it cost? $10?
And I think Erewhon is one of those places that it's very easy to hate. People do love to hate it. And I'm not at all discounting the reasons as to why people hate it or have a problem with it. For me personally, it was a place that I was very much curious about. This experience that I had in Erewhon, and obviously while I was in that commentary niche and making commentary videos, I recognized that my experience and how I felt in Erewhon, and then doing a little Google search, a little bit of a YouTube search about kind of the common, most popular narrative around videos created about Erewhon, my idea and my opinion and my kind of video was not matching up with the online sphere's popular targeted narrative. The algorithm doesn't prioritize a video like this. It doesn't fit what the algorithm appears to be feeding the outrage, feeding the rage bait, feeding the anger, the frustration. Reflecting back on a lot of the old commentary videos that I was producing, and I was essentially feeding that beast. People naturally like the negative and listen to other people complain about people in different financial brackets and how unethical that is and how those people aren't really good people, or how influencers or people in a different financial bracket are choosing to shop. And me just finding the grocery store interesting is not that much of an interesting video. And the social media world is very much driven by algorithms and very much black and white thinking, and there's very little room for nuance. And I think personally that human beings and the human experience is very complicated and complex, and human beings are complex. Can I recognize that, yes, the Erewhon prices are kind of outrageous? Can I recognize that food as a luxury is kind of sad, and that everybody should have access to healthy food, and this kind of separate world that the wealthy live in? Like, I can recognize all of that, but I can also recognize that I went to the grocery store and I found it interesting. People do have these very strong opinions, and I understand why they have them. A lot of the time, people see something on social media like Erewhon, they see it being portrayed online by influencers with these hauls of $200 worth of smoothies or whatever. The clickbait and the outrage and the rage baiting and just the shock value element. They see all these things and they have this hatred towards it, or they have this preconceived idea that it must be horrible because of how they've seen it on social media. They maybe see influencers sharing their experience online about it and think that everybody who shops there is vapid and horrible and out of touch and ridiculous. This kind of enigma, this big thing that's been created on social media. I was fascinated to immerse myself in that store for a good few hours and feel like I got to experience it and form my own opinions of it and sit in the uncomfortableness of, this is clearly a demographic of people that if I lived here, I wouldn't shop here all the time. In a dream world, everybody would have access to this type of food. And it's interesting how food has become a luxury, and certain types of food as a status symbol. I could sit with that, but then I also liked that I could sit with, this is interesting to me, and all of these brands that have made it into this store. I went to Erewhon, I love what it did for my brain. Sue me. I'm not going to pretend like I didn't, just to fit into this algorithmic narrative that currently exists on social media. I'm not going to manufacture outrage for views. It's easy to have a strong opinion and to form a strong opinion about people that shop at Erewhon and the store of Erewhon and the culture of Erewhon, and hate and have like a lot of emotionally charged feelings, and to see it and to sit in the fact that yes, it is an interesting look at food as a luxury, but also not everyone in there is pure evil and pretentious or out of touch. I think the Erewhon outrage falls more and more into a category now of hatred of people than I can get behind. And I don't know, even if it's not necessarily a hatred of them, it's like a absolute disgust for them, which I don't like that the world is heading in that way. There's a lot of obviously Erewhon related videos or commentary videos, and it's usually kind of follows along the same narrative. If it's not necessarily said by the person creating the video, it's almost always said in the comments. It's just this disgust for people who choose to shop there, can afford to shop there. Something that I think is made worse by social media and obviously maybe the political tension and the political divide that is just growing more and more extreme, that I just don't think I'll ever be getting behind. And it's basically why I wanted to make this video today, because I think if you are completely outraged and disgusted at the fact that I can come on and say that I found Erewhon to be fascinating, then this probably isn't the place for you. That's said with obviously no hard feelings. I'm paraphrasing here. There was this kind of a section of this podcast I listened to recently with Brene Brown and Diary of a CEO. And obviously they were kind of speaking about a more emotionally charged topic, but she kind of brought up this idea of like belief bunkers and how we're all kind of forming, and I suppose, you know, it's the concept of an echo chamber really as well. It's like we're forming these bunkers. It feels like this somewhat hostile feeling bunker.
We're going to get to a place where I don't even know you, but I'm going to call you friend because we hate the same people. Let's say that we have the same belief around immigration. So we're going to flip this table over and we're going to get behind it in our ideological bunker. And we're going to be like, yeah, we're right. And these guys are crazy. And then one day I'm going to turn to you and say, you know, one thing I'm wondering about is how are we going to solve the problem? And then you go, you're out.
A lot of the time, these beliefs are or come from a place of maybe dislike or hatred for the same thing or the same intense emotions regarding or surrounding a certain topic. Say we all decided that we hated Erewhon. We hated Erewhon and we hated the people of Erewhon and we hated everything it represents. So we all get together and we all crowd in and we all sit with each other in this little protected space of how we all have the same level of hatred and we connect on that. And then one day I fly, 15 hours on the other side of the world and I say, you know what, I kind of want to go in there. And that's automatically me out. How dare you? You are no longer one of us. You aren't someone that I can trust, I can relate to, I want around. You're out. You're out of our little bunker. And that's kind of, I think, what not only the commentary niche is becoming, but social media in general. I think we're forming and we're becoming more tribal, but in not necessarily the best way, I think. Something I have noticed, and that's part of the reason why back in June I didn't post a video like this. It didn't fit the narrative of, oh my God, Erewhon is outrageous and disgusting and ridiculous. Do I acknowledge that the prices are ridiculous? Absolutely. And I kind of got to thinking about a lot of the people that I watched, a lot of the videos that I watched regarding Erewhon and the commentary surrounding Erewhon. And, a lot of them hit kind of the main points that I think a lot of people feel. But I wonder if they did go into the store, would they genuinely not have a different thought, or would they still genuinely feel the same way? Like maybe they will. Like I don't know what the answer is. I'm not these people. But would they potentially think, wow, everything's really like strangely aesthetically pleasing in here? Or it really intrigues me that the aisles are like very small and it gives off like a health food kind of vibe, but it's bigger and it's different and it feels more like a social setting, and it is kind of strangely social. And all of these thoughts, would they have them? Would they express them if they did? Or would they feel like it's not the box that we are allowed to exit out of? I've always had this issue with YouTube and with social media is we're all supposed to fit into a box and talk about things within that box to please the algorithm and grow our channels and grow our social media and grow our personal brand and blah, blah, blah. But what happens if you have a thought or an opinion or a query that doesn't fit that narrative and steps outside the box? Because I do think two things can be true at once. You can think that Erewhon is kind of out of touch or a little bit ridiculous or a little bit dystopian, but could you also go in there and think it's kind of interesting, or the drinks taste kind of good, or the concept of, you know, bringing on celebrity endorsements to make smoothies is an interesting business strategy? Or could you just be fascinated about their potential expansion into places like New York and Miami and whether or not that would work, or would it not work? I feel like these things aren't things that you can talk about if it doesn't fit into the outrage and the pitchforks narrative, which is, I think, part of the reason we're losing nuanced, uncomfortable conversations, because it's not black and white. It's hard to sit in and listen to someone who has conflicting thoughts or conflicting opinions or potentially conflicting beliefs. It's hard to sit in that. And the algorithm doesn't know what to do with it. And a lot of the times the human mind doesn't know what to do with it. And we're reaching a place where more and more humans, because of social media and because of what circulates on social media and what makes it to the forefront of the algorithm, is that we're losing these dynamic and these nuanced discussions and these conversations that don't just hit one point and one point only, because nothing is just singular. Like, there is so many elements, there's so many things to discuss when it comes to just one topic or one situation or one argument or one person or one situation, one individual, one emotion. And I think we're losing that. Am I making sense? I don't know. I could just very well be rambling at you. Things that tend to bring out a lot of outrage or really strong emotions in people. I'm almost always more kind of curious or fascinated by it. And I suppose these expensive things like Erewhon and grocery stores like Erewhon is probably one of them. Being in Erewhon actually reminded me of a specific grocery store that I went to in Japan. I just stumbled upon this grocery store. I'm gonna see if I can find photos that I took. I just stumbled in there and I knew I was not in a regular grocery store when like every Japanese woman was dripping in diamonds and they all had like Birkins and Kellys. That woman's carrying like a $100,000 handbag on her arm on like a random Sunday morning at a grocery store. And I'm going to include some of the photos. Obviously I didn't take photos of the people, but these fruits, I was flabbergasted. Some of these fruits, like for instance, these mangoes were like around $100 US, which is absolutely insane. There was like signs that was basically explaining the process that went into these pieces of fruit and how they were chosen. All these like meticulous little things that went into this piece of fruit existing in this grocery store. It doesn't necessarily exhibit like a really strong emotion of hatred or anger or annoyance or sadness within me. I know that does for some people. I was fascinated looking at all the brands, looking at the process, what makes the cut, the really strict standards that Erewhon hold. I can also recognize that I was really interested in the business strategy of it all and the market that exists and the gap that's being filled by Erewhon. Some think it's outrageous and disgusting that it exists, but someone saw a gap and they decided to fill it. Part of the issue with social media and these tribalistic comment sections in these communities is that it almost discourages nuance and it discourages being complex. It would have been easier and better for my bank account if I came online and pitched to you about Erewhon and how disgusting and how horrible the people are that shop there and how it's just a disgusting place full of out-of-touch influencers who are promoting waste and promoting excess and, you know, all the talking points. But I didn't want to do that. I wanted to come on and talk about how I went there, and the experience interested me. And if I went back to LA, I would probably go back to Erewhon. And also fully recognize though that I experienced Erewhon as a tourist, obviously. Erewhon, obviously shopping at Erewhon is not my reality, but also luckily fighting for food and being able to pay for my grocery bills is also not my reality. I can drive through and see, you know, Skid Row and look at them in the eye and be genuinely curious about what led them there and whether or not they'll ever get out of there. Just a bunch of thoughts that ran through my head. And then I can also go to Erewhon in the same week and recognize that this is kind of insane. That interest in branding and marketing can also look at these brands and look at these businesses that exist that have made their way into Erewhon and be happy for them. I think that two or more ideas and multiple beliefs can exist in the same person. I know this video is not going to go over well. I've come to now realize that my number one focus around this channel is honing in and laser focused on building a community of people that are kind, nuanced, and also disagree, but that not be the end of it. That's, I think, really important. And that's something I think we're losing in society, which is a shame. You know, we're in this very divisive place. Anyway, I'm rambling. Thank you so much for joining me in today's video, and I'll see you in my next one.